Okay, so I'm sending out the questions in Slack because I notice a lot of people waste a few minutes rewriting what I've got here, and I'd much rather have you solving the problem. Okay, come on, let's go. Let's go. Come on, here we go. All right, clap your hands. You can hear my voice. All right, let's go over this one. Then we'll go over the. Let's do a little bit of time on the second one. Okay, so how do I start? Yeah. Okay. Good. Second largest. Right. It takes in an array. And looks good. What do I need? I'm gonna need a for loop for sure. So I guess I could write that now. So let I, we're gonna want to loop through the whole array. Length I plus plus. What am I gonna want to do inside of this for loop here? Right? What are you thinking?
Like what I was doing with setting variables, maybe that before.
Yeah, great. So Trey says, hey, we want to set variables before the for loop because we want to continue to check with every iteration against what we've got. That's a great idea, Trey. So let's do that. So if I say let biggest number, and what makes sense for me to, what's a good value for me to give this? Negative infinity? Who said that? I like, way to go. Great. So let's do it. So let's do number dot negative infinity, right? Because this is the smallest number ever. So every time I do a comparison on my first round, I'll for sure hit a positive. Okay. Let's do the next one. Let second biggest. Same thing. Okay. Okay, and so then, now that we're back in the for loop, what do we need to check for? Yeah, we will definitely need to check if our array is bigger than our second biggest, but I think we might need to check for something else first. Winter?
array of I is greater than array of I plus 1.
Sorry?
Greater than array of I plus 1.
Y plus 1.
So I can check the number that exists as X.
Oh, okay. So we're going to be able to handle checking that in with the for loop, because after we run through each iteration, we'll be able to check on the next array at I. You're thinking of a bubble sort a little bit, where we're comparing two numbers like that. We just want to compare against this one.
Okay.
Morteza?
Array at I bigger than biggest number.
Okay, yeah. So he says if array at I is greater than biggest number, what do we want to do? Yeah, Jonathan.
You array I on we assign the value, right? So array I,
Array at I.
and then we assign the value of biggest, and then biggest number becomes second biggest.
Okay. Okay. So, is this where are we reassigning the value of this item, or are we using?
Assign the value.
Okay, I don't know about that one. Trey?
I'll reassign the value of biggest number.
Okay, we will need to reassign the value of biggest number. Sure, I'm into that because we don't want to like change the array here. We just want to find that biggest number, or second. Well, we really want to find the second biggest, but we could say biggest number. That array of I. Bless you. But if we've replaced our biggest number, what do we need? Like why? Yeah. Okay, Trey.
In that case, array. The second biggest would be the number that you just put.
Yeah. So how do I do that? So he says we've got to get that second biggest number has to be updated to be what was the biggest number. Where do I put that? A temporary? Where is that? Before the condition. Maybe. I don't think we're going to need quite that because we don't want to catch it for every number. Let's see. Morteza?
Comes after the if statement, the biggest second biggest equal biggest number.
Okay, so Morteza says we got to do it here, and we could just say second biggest equals biggest number. Does this line make sense to everyone, or should I draw like Y? I'm going to draw Y. All right. So let's say we've got a biggest number. I'm going to call it big. And this has the value of 6. We've got our second. And this has a value of 1, right? And now we've just come across the number 8, right? So if we were to just update biggest to 8, we'd say, all right, biggest is equal to 8. And then we would have nothing to assign our second biggest one to. We see that? So we have to go, we have to kind of go like this back. So we go, all right, there, and then there. So we can reassign second to 6, and reassign big to 8. Yeah,
So now the order is right that is that's not.
totally. All right. Max, so what's the next thing we need?
Else if second biggest is greater than
Not necessarily biggest. Second, so second biggest is never going to be bigger than our biggest number. Array at I, boom. Yeah, so it's what Matt had said initially before we did our first if. He was saying if array at I is greater than second biggest. So this is the situation where, you know, biggest is 6 and small second biggest is 1, but then we've hit 6, right? And we don't want to update our biggest, but we do want to update our second biggest. So in that case, we can update it. Second biggest at array at I. What else? Then what's next? Return? Where? Outside of the loop, okay. And what do I want to return? Yeah, second biggest. Great. So let's try it. About time, right? Largest. Okay. Let's see what we get. Oh man, freaks out. Oh, that's probably from all this text. Yeah, all right, we got it. No, it's definitely the second biggest. Okay, so let's take another 10 minutes to write a recursive function that takes in a range, so a low and a high, and returns an array with all of those numbers in between. But how are we gonna use it?
So I was thinking of pushing. I'm popping. Pushing the copy.
That's and then above that.
Same.
Make it on time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, what's that?
No,
Yes, a lot.
Come
had a lot. You wouldn't delete it.
Keep it with the staff.
All right, clap your hands if you can hear my voice. Let's check this out. Let's go over it. Okay. So there's a few ways that we could have solved this, and it's definitely a tricky one. Oops. So the first thing we need to do is define the function. I think we got here range, and it's taking in a low and a high. So there's a bunch of different ways to solve it, and I saw a couple of people solve it different ways. And so let's kind of review and recap about like what's going on with recursion, right? So the idea is that every time we have a recursive function, we have to call ourselves, right? If I just write range here, low and high, this is technically a recursive function. It's not a very good one. It will run forever and it will just freak out, but it's a recursive function. Okay, so whenever you hear someone say write something recursive, you should be thinking, I gotta call myself at some point, or my function has to call itself at some point. Otherwise, I'm not doing recursion. So also, recursion allows us to kind of have this like loop. And so a lot of these recursive functions, it means we're probably not going to need a loop. Some of them you do, like the flatten and things you do, but other ones, like this, it's like, it's just, we can use that recursive call in place of the loop. But then the second really important thing is like to come up with a base case. When does it stop? So we're going to keep calling ourselves at some point. We know we're going to call ourselves. And at some point, we actually have to stop and return some sort of data so that when it bubbles back up there, we can do something with it then. Otherwise, we'll just keep calling and calling, right? So we have to stop at some point. And then we got to think, how do we make our step from one thing to the next? So I like to try to think of like the most basic possible input I could have and still have something returned. So like what if I put my low as the number 3 and I put my high as the number, I should spell that correctly, and I put my high as the number 2. What would be an expected output? So this is like when they've been put in the wrong way. Do we have any guesses? Yeah, sure. So if I tried to call this function and I actually didn't follow like the rules and I put like a 2 and a 1 or something where like my low was actually higher than my high, what's a possible output that might make sense? Undefined. What did you say, Leo?
Throw an error.
Throw an error. Okay. Could stop. What do you mean by that?
So it's just return.
What did you say? Turn M?
Return like.
Return something. Eileen? She wants us to return a Stack Overflow. Okay. Jonathan knows because I talked to him about it earlier. Wait, what if we just return an empty array? Because like we say, all right, well, there is no range between 2 to 1. I mean, there is in our human brain, but like for trying to like get a problem that takes a low number and makes a range to the high, if they put it in the wrong way, it would just be an empty array. Does that sound fair, not fair? What are our thoughts? All right. So I think that would be an okay base case. I think a good plan of attack would be to push, to eventually hit this empty array and to push the low into it until I eventually, or unshift it in. I mean, there's a few different ways, right? Some people I saw concat things too. So let's say, what if low is greater than high? We could just return an empty array. So if somebody puts in 2 and 1, it just returns that. Now, what would we want? So then let's go to the second most like basic possible input, like realistic input we could have, which would be like 1 and 1. What would be a good output for a 1 and 1 when the number's the same? Trey?
It would just be that number. It'll only have a range of 1.
Okay, great. So Trey says we could just return like a 1 number in a range in the event that they're the same. I think, yeah, that sounds fine.
Is there a range there? Then we have 1 and 1.
Well, that's a good debatable question. So that would be something like you would talk about with an interviewer if you were asked this question, and say like, well, what is like? You should definitely be asking like, what is the expected output when this is higher than that, or this is equal to? For our purposes, I would say we would include it, just like here we're including 3 and 8. If we get 1 and 1, we might as well return an array of 1. So we got to make some kind of step. So if I returned 1 and 1, and the only base case I have is when I have something where the low is greater than the high, what can I do to my low to get it inside of an empty array? Like, how can I get an empty array from here? Because my output eventually has to be an array. So I can start building off of that base case. Right?
You want to declare a variable to empty array?
Okay, so Trey says we want to declare a variable to an empty array, and that's possible, but eventually we're going to get this empty array. So eventually this call should return an empty array. But how can I make this call return an empty array? If I'm given the range of 1 and 1, how can I make this call inside of my function return an empty array?
Equal as low, greater or equal.
I heard someone else actually say it.
You can do like a range of low plus 1 high.
Okay, so let's say we did like low plus equals 1. Okay, so if I did low plus equals 1 here, this would become 2, and this would still be 1, and this would return an empty array. Okay, so that would be pretty cool. So I'm going to call this like let output this empty array. And now if we can pretend that we passed in 1 and 1, we haven't hit our base case, so we've incremented our low by 1, so now we're passing in 2 and 1. And we've just returned from this call, because it has hit our base case, an empty array. So at this point in time, output is an empty array. Do we agree, or should I do it again? Okay. So we've got low and high in our range, and we're saying if low is greater than high, return that empty array. So if we were to pass in 1 and 1, and we know we want to get this output, but like we're going to like go about it with what the tools we've already set up. We could say, all right, it's not going to hit our base case because 1 is not greater than high. So we're incrementing our low 1 by 1. So now, and then we're passing in 2 and 1. Right? So then this is going to make a call immediately. And it's going to have 2 and 1 here. And it's going to say if 2 is greater than 1, return empty array. So for all intents and purposes, this right now is an empty array. Are we okay with that? Okay, so if this is an empty array, what needs to go inside of it? It needs to go that low number, but we've already changed that low number, right?
Low number minus 1.
Yeah, okay, we could try. Well, we don't want to assume that we know the high number. So we could possibly minus our low, or we could create like a temporary variable, right? Maybe I could say let current low equal to low up here. So now I would have access to that 1. Is that fair? So here, if I know that output is now an empty array, how can I get a 1 in there? Yeah, I could push, I think with the order, well, let's see. Okay, so we're going to say output dot push current low. And the return value of push is what? Yeah, the return value of push is the length of the array, so we can't return right here. But we can return down here, right? We would want to return output. Okay, so let's see if this works with 1 and 1. Okay, so it does. It gives us this array of 1. So what if we try the next most simple but real life input? So I go 1 and 2. We go, okay. So we get 2, 1, so it's like kind of working. We're building in the wrong order. Can we think of how we might switch that order there? Unshift. But yeah, Neeleen says instead of push, we can unshift. And then we get it. And we go, okay, let's just try something a bit different. And we go, great, it works. Questions? Can someone volunteer and explain how this is working? Yeah, Johnny, go for it.
So we're going to range of 1 to 5. 1 is low, 5 is high. So if low is greater than high, return empty array. And low plus equals to 1, you want to store low to a variable. And then we're going to call the function over. And any times, then we're going to store the function call as output. Then output. Every call is going to shift to the front. And bring the number of current low, adding 1. So it's going to push it to the front of the array. So it reaches base case high. solution base case that it's 5, it'll stop.
Yeah, great. So what he's saying is eventually we're going to have something where it says, like, we're going to have the 6 and 5 situation. And that's when we'll get our empty array. And before that, we'll have 5 and 5. And then when that pops out, it will be 4 and 5. And we'll just keep adding into it. And there are some other solutions. I highly encourage you to share your solutions on the code snippets. Set some cool ones with cat and stuff. Any other questions on this?
Let's set the empty array as an argument inside the array.
What do you mean set an empty array inside the argument array?
Low I,
Oh, in here?
yeah.
Yeah, that's another way that we could do it. He's saying we could do something like array equal to that. And then we would just return array. But then we'd have to push. I mean, the rest of the logic would also have to be different. So I don't really want to go down with that. But if you solved it that way, like, share it. Definitely share it. Yeah, Johnny.
Console log between lines 22 and 23.
Sure. What do you want to console log?
Low, current low.
Whoops.
That keeps track of the count.
Here, I'll make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Okay, let's go over it again. Let's maybe do it on a whiteboard so we can visually see the call stack. Okay. So let's make the range. Let's say I call range with 1 and let's say 3. I don't want to go too far now. So I say, all right, is low greater than high? No. So I'm going to have a current low. So I'm going to say CL, and our current low is 1. Okay. And we're going to look at our low is going to get incremented. So our low is going to be now 2. And we're going to say output equals, we're going to call range of 2 and 3. Yes? Okay. So now we start from the beginning again. So we say, okay, is low greater than high? No. And so we're going to say, let's make a current low in this call. And current low is 2. And then we are incrementing low by 1. So we have our low, which is 3. And now we say output, our output here, is equal to R of 3 and 3. And we start again. So we say, oh, it's low greater than high. Not yet. And so we have our current low, which is 3. And we're going to say our low, after we've incremented it, is 4. Oh, you guys can still see this. Not this. Okay, the low, we got these 4. And then, is that better? Can we see it better? All right. And then we're going to say let output equal the return value of 4 and 3. So then this starts all over and it says, hey, is low greater than high? It is, right? So it's just going to return this empty array. So output here becomes an empty array. Does that make sense? Okay. And we continue. We're going to say output dot unshift our current low, and our current low is 3. So I'm going to unshift it in. So this has a 3 now inside of it. And we're going to return this output. So the return value of 3 and 3 is now this array of 3 in it. So cross this off, and I'm just going to have my 3. Okay, so now we're back in this call where we called it the 2 and 3. We had our current L is 2, our low is 3, right? And now we have an output of just an array of 3 in there. And we say, all right, output dot unshift our current low, which is 2. So this gets a 2 in there now. And we return output. So now this, on this call, cross out, evaluated to the array of 2, 3. And then we continue with what our original call was, which was 1 to 3. And we say, okay, output dot unshift our current low, which is 1. So that's the 1 in there. And then it says return output. So this gets returned. So then this becomes our final result array. Julian.
When did you make the output equal to the engineering? How did it move to when it pushed into the output and it pushed into the engineering?
Okay, sorry. So this was at one point, right? If we remember, it was R at 4 and 3. And this evaluates to? Exactly. So that became that empty array. And then the rest, the current function that it was in got to continue to run. So the thing to remember with recursion is every time we make this call, we go right down the rabbit hole, right? So it's like a maze, kind of. I don't know how to explain it. It's like some haunted house with trap door rooms, and like as soon as you go in, like you're in like this whole new area, and you have to start again. It's like a dream where you keep waking up, and then you wake up again because you thought you were awake that first time. Right? So it's like every time you wake up, you have to start again. It's Groundhog's Day. Until you end. And then it's like, hey, return this real thing, but then instead of like being able to just continue on in your life, I think is what might happen again. I don't really remember. Don't spoil it. Instead of just continuing, you actually just like go back, right? That's kind of like a Back to the Future thing, where they went through all those things and then like they end up back before the incident even happened.
What's the time complexity?
The time complexity of this is just, I guess, high minus low. So just like kind of end, whatever the difference is between these two numbers is the number of calls we have to make. It moves, what's the word? It moves with it, you know? I make 1 through 4, it's just one more call, 1 through 5, one more call. Yeah. Just n. And the space complexity of this is, well, that's an interesting question. I guess the space complexity is also n. Because we're not making a new array.
Can we do one more recursive?
Tomorrow. Or Monday morning. make sure that we keep going. Sure, I'll throw one on Slack tomorrow. Yeah. Any other questions on this one? Yeah.
In this word called recursive, just define these variables by the end.
What was it? I don't know.
That is just define these empty variables by the end, and then all the way back. Is
Then-
this word normal?
Then it goes, is that normal?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's always going to keep calling itself until it finally returns some like real piece of data that's not a function call, so that it can then go back up to call state. Or down, depending on how your mind works. All right, cool to erase. You can take a picture of it. All right, whatever, I don't need the board right now. When I use it again on, we'll be erasing it. All right, let's do it. While I've got everybody here though, I want to like quickly brush up on like this is, we've got like a lot of people that are coming in late every day. Right? It's not like one person in particular, it's a lot of people every day. And I know we're like, it's not the 25-minute strike zone, but it's still late. And we got to change that. If the train is messed up every day, it's not the train, right? We can leave earlier. I promise, you know, I'm putting in my time to get here every day at the same time in the morning. And I hope that you will do that for me as well. If people are thinking like, oh, it's just the warm-up that I'm missing, that's not important. The warm-up is definitely important. This was strictly like the only reason we've been doing the warm-ups is like to start reviewing and try to strengthen skills that we've already covered. This is like a good chance to like go over material. If people decide like that the warm-up's not important anymore for them and they're not going to come in, we'll eliminate the warm-up and we'll just start the lecture at 10 and you will miss new material. So it's super, super important to come in on time. Okay? We gotta do that. So I want to talk a little bit about NPM again today, which is the Node Package Manager. Oh, I should share this on Slack before I delete it. Hang on. Code snippets coming at ya. Okay, so we talked a little bit about NPM, and we've been using NPM a bit over the last, like tic-tac-toe and when we're running Node. So let's talk more about NPM and about the management. Most of these things are like, I want you to read them. But I want to talk a little bit about package JSON and stuff. So let's go over to a new atom. Okay, so what is package JSON and why do we need it? Does anybody know off the top of their head? Okay, so a package JSON is something that comes with your application. So someday when someone else wants to play with it, so let's say you created that great tic-tac-toe game, right? We love that tic-tac-toe, it's working, it's really fun. We're not hosting it yet live on our own server somewhere, but we do have this tic-tac-toe game. And we want someone else wants to play with your tic-tac-toe game. A lot of us use the package readline sync, right? So there has to be a way for me, if I'm borrowing your game, I'm downloading it on my computer, to have readline sync in my computer. And the way we do that is by making a package JSON. A package JSON is basically a file that tells you what node modules you need to have in order to run this program. So let's see how to make one and all that. So first thing you want to do when you're making a package JSON is you say npm init, and then it shows you this nice message. So you guys can do this too. Let's make a new folder for today that we'll work in. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that.
In a folder directory in npm init.
Sorry?
In the folder that we created.
Yeah.
npm init.
Yeah, so let's create a new folder, because if we were creating a new project, like we wanted to start our own tic-tac-toe game or something, which we'll use throughout the day to make. We'll see how far we get, but we'll hopefully be able to eventually broadcast something on the web again. And you'll just start off by writing npm init, and this is going to create a package JSON file for you. It's going to show up automatically. I don't think mine has it because I haven't gone through the steps. Just kind of give me a thumbs up when you're there.
Creating the same message you are.
Yeah. Cool. Give me a thumbs up if you're not ready. Okay. It's all positivity.
So again, so JSON checks to see what your modules are. Kind of. Yeah.
Awesome. So Dave is asking for me to say it again. So the package JSON file lists all of the dependencies. This is meaning what your application is dependent on. So if you wrote a tic-tac-toe game, and in order for your game to actually work, is you need user input, and you've been using readline sync for it, and your app calls for this readline sync, which is, remember, that was not a built-in module that we took in. Readline was built in. This one was something that was one of those outside created modules. We need to let that person know that they also need to get readline sync, and the way they install it is they run npm install. But
So your npm, I mean, the JSON is like a required. So.
you're saying that JSON, the package JSON, so it's actually gonna install them on their computer. If we remember back to Unit 1 practice and final, I think we wrote npm install before, and that made it so, because a lot of us didn't have Jasmine already set up in our local environment. Jasmine was the testing suite that we were using to check whether or not the problems were working, right? We were exporting all those problems and importing them into this testing suite, which was running code against those problems to see if we got the correct output given a specific input. And the reason you had to install it was so that Jasmine could work. So we had to get that module going so that it could do all that like special code to keep it working. All right, I think we're mostly on this side. So let's just kind of go through this together, right? It talks about creating it, and it only covers the most common items and tries to get sensible defaults. you can see, you can type in npm help JSON for definitive documentation. I don't know if you'll need to do that, but it might be fun to read. You'll use npm install, and then you'll say your specific package afterwards if you want to add that. And if you want to save it as a dependency, although it's not saying it, typically you write -- save, which we'll go over that. All right, so I will say package name. So we can call this something if we want. Otherwise, it just kind of defaults to something. So I'm gonna call it first node something. I'm gonna call it fifth node. Enter. I can't contain capital letters. All right, I guess I will call it first node. And then it talks about what version. I'm not so worried about the version. I'm just going to hit enter. A description, I'm going to say, learning package JSON. Entry point. So the entry point is something where it wants to know where the point of entry is. So it's guessing right now math.js. I'm going to do it in mod.js though. So I'm just going to change it to mod.js, which is a different one of my folders. You can have anything.
File.
It's file, thank you.
We have any file.
Like any file that you want this entry point to be.
Need to
If you don't have
unlist
one.
the folder, right?
If you don't have one, it will just default one for you. Sounds good.
I don't get what's going on. Hold on. Okay, this file is what? Where's this file? A random file.
It's a file that we're going to be running our code in.
So we should create it first.
Well, it will probably just default to index.js, and then you can create a file called index.js.
You gotta make it after.
Yeah. Hello. If you have questions, throw it up, Takia. I'm not sure. I think it's so when we run like npm commands, it will go through that file. I'm not totally 100% clear on the specifics of the entry point. Almost always I just enter through this. Sure, yeah, we'll create a file called index.js if yours is that file. Test command, not worried about this. Git repository, I don't have a Git repository set up right now. Keywords, I don't really have any keywords at the moment. Author, I guess I'll say me. Corey. Just as you fill it, license, I don't have a license. And then it kind of shows me what it's going to look like. It's going to have this first name, version 1.0, description, learning package JSON. My main file is going to be this mod.js. I currently have this dependency. Don't worry if yours doesn't say this yet. This is something that I've already added into my computer on a global level, so it just puts it in there for me. These are dev dependencies. The script, you don't really have to worry about that for right now. Shows the author and then some default license.
Cool, it's like an object.
Yeah, it is. It's totally an object.
Sorry, back to the mod. Do you have to create it somewhere or no?
Well, I just already had it created.
I can't even see it. So you have it.
I have a file called mod.js. Yours, if it's in, it doesn't have to be the same file name. It was,
Is that inside the folder that you did?
yes,
Oh, it's
it's the same. It's inside the same folder. Janelle,
Where said, is this okay? You type yes or just hit enter?
just hit enter. Mateo.
Just to clarify, if it defaults to index.js or math.js or whatever.js, just make sure you make that file.
I think so, yeah.
Touch, space.
Sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, so regarding the data repository, so if we already have one, we can put the HTTP link over there.
The HTTP link? I don't know what you're.
The data repository.
Oh, yeah, I think you could do that. All right, so just hit OK. And you can see, let's see if I don't know if I can get the side thing bigger. Let's see if I can. I think it's just going to enlarge the other side. Well, you should see a package.json folder that was created in your code. So we can go click on that, and we can see the same thing that it kind of had, that it had us approve.
This is kind of like a header, and we can got into it, like when we store it into the same file, and then we get the values of it.
Yeah, kind of. It's actually going to install things for us. So, all right, have we gotten this? All right, so let's find a package that's kind of fun. So let's say we go to Chalk. Here, I'll Slack out this link. And in the web days, I'm slacking out a link. And so this is like the main website for NPMs. Here, let me see if I can get that bigger. And you can see information about these different packages that are out there, that exist in the wild, right? It shows us how many weekly downloads. So Chalk seems to be like an extremely popular one. It gets 18 million, almost 19 million weekly downloads. That's pretty crazy. And it tells us a little bit about it and how to use it. It says it highlights expressive API, highlights performance, tells us a bit about it, and then it tells us how to install it. So let's go back to our terminal and install it. So we can go npm install Chalk, and then if we want it to save into our package.json, although it might be kind of dependent on your version, because I think they are they're constantly improving it, but we might as well get into a habit. You go -- save, and I'm going to hit enter, and we see it installing something. Yep, still in that same folder. Johnny.
What is the -- doing?
This is going to add it into our package.json. So now we can see that it's been updated in Atom to say that one of its dependencies is Chalk.
Can you go back to the terminal?
Go back to what? Andre?
How does it log in? It all into the 25 terminal.
What do you mean?
Was that already in our computer? Was that already in our computer to begin with?
No, it goes in through the power of Node,
Through the power of Node, it goes to the website and then follows the package.json.
and it grabs that specific. We already have the package.json. It actually grabs all of the information, all of that code that was in that specific module, and it puts it into, I think you should probably have a folder. It's hard for me to read on too. Called Node modules. Did everybody get a Node modules folder that just showed up?
Yeah.
Great. So if you click on that node module, you'll see it's like some giant file with tons of things in it. That's totally normal. This is just all of the things that Chalk, and you see we have Chalk in here too, but these are things that Chalk is dependent on. So in order for Chalk to run correctly, it needs to have all of those packages, which is a lot of things. This is the node modules folder is something that you typically will ignore. When you push to GitHub, you would ignore it, and so that it doesn't get pushed to GitHub because it's just such a massive amount of information. It's like just insane how big it is, right? I mean, it's like holy Toledo, and these all have stuff in there.
It's weird that only got 7 folders.
No, you just downloaded Chalk, right? A lot of these might be linked to the NodeMen that I already have. Maybe I can uninstall. Anyway, npm uninstall. Oops. Okay, we'll see if my packages go down. Takia?
I was wondering if it's possible to like do add-ons to Git, but including.
Yeah, we can create a git ignore file. I guess we could do that now. I have to remember how to do it too. So if you want to ignore something in Git, you say git ignore. And you create a file that says .gitignore. And then I think you just write the stuff directly into it. So if I go back to my terminal and I write touch period git ignore. Spell that right? Oh, it looks such an ugly word. And then I can open up my git ignore.
What makes that bigger? I see.
I can't make that bigger, but if it should be in yours too. I can't figure out how to make the sidebar bigger. If you figure it out, let me know. Or if somebody knows how to make the sidebar bigger, that'd be really helpful. What?
MPN
Settings?
no modules is sort of like what we were doing yesterday.
Yesterday we were importing and exporting modules that we made.
So no modules is just external.
Well, right now we're talking about like the Node Package Manager, which is NPM. So Node has tons of modules, right? It has some built-in ones like readline. It has some that we can make, like we did with the math.js, where we made our own module of math that we were able to export and import in a different file. And then we have ones that are made by other developers, like readline sync and Chalk. And all. It's the NPM where we're really starting to use what other people have written. Because if it's not built in and it's not something that we have to go get it. And so that's why we have to do that npm install. And then that creates all those like node modules in the files. So in here in your git ignore, you just write node module. Oops, I can't type. I wish I could get that. So it's got an underscore. I am currently typing in the git ignore file. So we went here and we wrote, I can make this bigger for sure. we made a git ignore file. And so this way, if we wanted to link it up to our GitHub repository, we don't have to push all of those node modules stuff in there because it's just too much stuff. Andre?
That file is just a text file. Or is it dot ignore special where you create it, or is it just a text file?
No, it's .git ignore. Yeah, this is a special thing with Git. This tells Git to ignore anything inside of here. So I've added node modules. So when I go to push them here, so let's do it. So I'll go git init, initialize a git like a local Git repository, right? And I can say git status. And I have all of these things, but you'll notice, oh, I do have node modules. Maybe this isn't. Maybe I need a slash.
It's a slash.
Slash at the end. All right, let's try it again. Git status. Okay, so now I don't have the Git modules in there. So if I wanted to add all this stuff to GitHub, and I go git add, git status. All right, I get all this stuff, but I don't have the node modules. And if I had the node modules, it would just be so much stuff to send to GitHub.
So you have to take it out.
Yeah, well, you want to ignore it.
How do you ignore it again?
So you want to create a file called .gitignore, one word, looks like this. Its own file in the folder. We go up a bit, we can see it. When we made the file here. Yeah, Jackie?
Oh, no, I got it.
Okay. I added it to the staging area. Well, if I wanted to commit it, I would then do git commit. And then if I wanted to push it to GitHub, I would go make a repository at GitHub. Then I would add that remote repository. And then I would push. Alex?
Git ignore ignores files and folders. It's everything you put in there.
I believe it ignores everything that you put in there. Mateo?
On a side note, this is similar to the way your packages and add-on. You have your linting, something like this.
Cool. Jackie? It's just the file .gitignore. That's all you write.
So when you open it,
And then when you open it, it looks like this. And you can type, well, I don't want to change anything. And you can type in the folder that you want ignored when we go to GitHub. And that's the great thing, right? Because so we're like, oh, but Chalk needs all of those dependencies, right? And we're ignoring them here. And so if we put them on GitHub and somebody forks our repository and then clones it, they're not going to have Chalk in theirs. But they will have that this package JSON that tells them that they're going to need Chalk right here. Where did it go? Thank you. It said where it's going to say, hey, you need Chalk. And so then whoever does it will run npm install, just not naming a specific package. And the package JSON will install all of those dependencies and create their own node modules folder on their computer. Johnny.
I wanted to know about that. Like we're ignoring the node.modules. Let's say someone else wants to download GitHub. And let's say I have Chalk and something else in there.
Totally.
And they won't have the dependencies because it's going to be ignored. So how do they know how to install what they need?
they're going to have to write npm install, because when they get your repository, it's going to have that package JSON. The node modules is not the package JSON. They're two, one's a folder, one is a file, and the package JSON gives directions to what packages we're going to need. Mateo?
You can even look at the node modules folder, click on the song, that has its own.
Sure, we can do that. Oh, I already had it open. It's super hard to see the file names. Got to figure that out. Okay, so let's say we decide we don't actually need Chalk. What do we want to do? Well, we can uninstall it. We can go npm. We see this. So npm uninstall Chalk. Hit enter. And whoop, it's gone. Right? We lost that node module, I think. Oh, we still have it. We lost all the things that had to do with Chalk. But we'll see that it also updated our package JSON. Pretty convenient.
That was npm uninstall.
Mm-hmm. That was npm uninstall, and then the name of the package that we wanted to uninstall. Oops. Any questions on that? Yeah, Johnny.
So, after you uninstall, also remove it from the package JSON. So to install it, you can't install Chalk.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's say we go actually we do want Chalk. All right. npm install Chalk -- save. Then it doesn't add it. Well, your version might, but a lot of versions don't, and it won't add it to the package JSON. You'll just have it available. But then a lot of people sometimes don't put save, and they add a bunch of packages without the save, and it's working perfect on their computer, and then they put it out there. I graded a few tests like this last year, where then I'd download the test onto my computer, I'd run npm install to get all their packages, but they would leave out, like, they didn't include the save, so then I would get like an error message where it would say, you don't have this package, so then I'd have to do it. You know, it kind of became a big hassle. Yeah, Davey?
You're Adam.
Yeah, I'm an Adam.
Running, style sheet. Style sheet.
Okay. I have to see where it is.
Just scroll down, tree view. Font size. Add it.
Which one?
Tree view.
Tree view. Okay.
Add font size.
Awesome. Way to go, David. Fudge. Can we see that?
Yes.
Or should it be bigger?
No.
Oh man, but it's so. Look, what happens if we do 250? Okay. That's like so much fun. That is great. Thank you, Davey. Awesome. So now we can really actually see what we're working with. Huge advantage. Okay, great. Super helpful. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, install. Like chalk, it'll always give you the latest version. Maybe a person gets your set dependency 2.9.
Yeah.
Like, they'll always give them the latest version.
So it depends on. That's a great question. So Thomas is asking about like the versions of where did our package JSON go? Okay. And he's saying like this is chalk 2.4.1. If it's in the package JSON like this, even in the year 2040, when we're on chalk 7, it would still grab chalk 2.4.1. It will, like you can specify the exact version you want. If we just randomly grab a package, like we just want to add chalk and we do npm install chalk, then yeah, it'll be the latest version. Johnny.
Now, chalk is kind of like what yesterday's topic was, like you're getting code from someone else.
Yeah, it's someone else's code. And so let's take a look, let's take a further look at chalk and see, okay, so this is a usage, so we can require chalk. And we can do like this chalk.blue. So let's try it. Let's go to our index file. I think you have yours is probably index.js, mine is mod.js. And so we can say like, hey, const chalk. And then we have to use a keyword require to get that module that we want. And we can say require and chalk. Right, that's what the documentation tells us. Yeah, looks good. So if we're new to chalk, right, we might want to read more of this and see like, okay, chalk comes with an easy to use composable API. Interesting. Like, oh, it looks like it does a lot of coloring things. So let's try one of these. Let's just try the basic one here. And we'll say, all right, so let's say we go console log, and it looks like we can call our object, our chalk module, right? This is coming in as some kind of object. We can say .blue, and it looks like that's a function that takes in some kind of string. So we'll say, I am the bluest part of the ocean. Okay. Save it. Oops, I don't know why that happened. Something else. Close these extra things. And then back in our thing, right, we know how to run something with Node. We can say Node, and then the name of the file that you wish to run. So I'm going to say mod, I think I called it, .js. I mean, it's definitely hard to read on a black background, but because I'm the bluest part of the ocean.
You have chalk reinstalled.
I did reinstall it. So let's see, let's like experiment here. Console.log. Maybe yellow works. Chalk.yellow. I'm the yellowest star in the solar system. All right. Okay.
It's not really important, but I found it interesting that if you have like a change the color of your text, it seems like you blend the color.
What do you mean it blends the colors?
Like my text color is pink, and when I put in blue, it's not purple.
Interesting. So Takia says that she already types with pink letters all the time. And so when she put in what color? Blue. So I'm not very good with the primary colors. When she put in blue with her pink letters, it came out as purple letters. I don't know, maybe. But that's kind of fun. It's a little chalk thing. Renat, can I log chalk? Absolutely. Chalk. We see chalk is this object. It's the constructor, the class. Yeah.
Let's not change that religion.
It looks like it. Yeah. Johnny.
Is there a way to see all the chalk's keys and values to know what we have to work
I don't know. Let's try object.keys or something. See if we can get something. Let's explore. Now it only shows that we have three keys. So I guess not. I guess, you know, if you really want to know what's available, got to read the docs.
So I guess it's like protected by the creator.
Maybe, yeah, maybe they don't want you to see it. I'm not totally sure, but looks like it's mostly colors. Oh, you look chalk blue, dot underline, dot bold. That sounds kind of fun. What is PG what? Where am I seeing it?
Background red. I guess, mine is background red.
I don't know where we're looking.
Second one under blue. Like,
This one?
Yeah. You just pointed it.
Oh, let's see what happens. Who knows? I don't know if we have to console log it, or if log is something that it does. Okay. So they're being short. They're like, oh, you can copy and paste this, but you still have to do something. Rude.
Oh, so you can change.
So you can see like how something like this in your tic-tac-toe game could be kind of fun, right? When you're like, welcome to tic-tac-toe, you know. All games sound like that to me. But you can do things, right? So BG probably stands for background, right? Yeah, David.
Does it say somewhere that chalk is only for the terminal?
I don't think it says that.
We can inspect, like, same thing in the browser.
You can probably do something like this in the browser. But you would probably be wanting to then like show it in the console. You probably don't want to use like a package like this instead of CSS. That's like, as far as I know, it's just not really done. Probably better to use CSS. But this is something fun for the terminal. Or the console in the browser.
Yeah, so then I
Yeah.
think this work in your Chrome.
I'm not sure. I guess we should find out. Let's do it. So I'm going to make a file. Sure, yeah. So I'm going to go touch, and we can say mod.html. You should make yours the same as whatever you've already been working in. And let's do it. So let's do HTML. And I'm going to add script tag here. Right, and this is going to point to my source, which is going to be ./mod.js. And hello world. So weird that hello world is like the first programmer thing. Like, good thing it's hello world, right? Like, I mean, it's not sexy per se, but it could be like a lot worse. Like, what if it was like I'm a slob? So every time you had to run a function, you had to read I'm a slob. Control, copy full path. That'd be super depressing. Okay, so let's try it. We're gonna go here. Run it. Look if we got anything in our console. Require is not defined. Oh, okay. We might have to. We might have to do something ES60. Let me see. Import Chalk from Chalk. Did you see my syntax there? I don't know. Let's not worry about it in the browser right now.
Can I ask you a question about that line one? Is it the same as what you had previously? Const chalk equals required chalk?
Yeah, but we're not really in that yet. Yeah, it's an ES6 thing that we'll be doing later. That it didn't work for this. Let's just stay on the path. Right? This is enough new stuff at the moment. So forget the HTML for now. We'll be working with HTML later today, probably. Okay. Any other questions on NPM and package JSON? Yeah, John.
When you push it to GitHub and I do git ignore node modules, the dependencies will still stay in the package JSON, just like showing that it's been there.
Totally.
When someone else downloads it, they can see the dependencies and then install the dependencies shown in the object.
100%. So Johnny's saying with that git ignore, where he's ignoring the node modules, the dependencies will still show in the package JSON. So if somebody were to clone his application from online, they could just write npm install, and then their own node modules folder would show up, and with that, they'd be able to use it all. And the answer is totally. Cool. Oh, I didn't actually update the exercises. So on Canvas, in under 5 minutes on Canvas, there'll be actually, yeah, I'm going to update Canvas, but what I want you guys to be working on is the exercises here at the bottom of that. Where is it? I have it somewhere in here. Right, if we go to our GitHub, where we go intro to NPM, there's a exercises and project section. So just like yesterday, I want you to make your own folder with NPM exercises and create a module, and then add that to your own new GitHub repository, and then submit the link to that repository via Canvas. I know it's not on Canvas yet. I'm going to update that now. Questions on that? All right, cool. Does it work on the console?
No, it says terminal string sliding boundary.
Terminal string styling only? Too bad. That was worth a try though, right?
So are we just working on the project right now?
Exercise and project. Yep. Yeah, we'll do this till lunch, yeah.